Hey parents, just a quick note. We will, as an option, we could use bleach as one of our chemicals for today. But don't worry, we're not going to use the whole thing. What we would recommend is just take about 6 ounces of water and just 1/8 of a teaspoon of bleach. Just get a little bit of that, pour it inside of the water, and that's all we need. Hello there, boys and girls. Thank you for tuning in to another High Touch High Tech program where we're going to talk about acids and bases. Now before we start that, make sure you go on and grab the right bag. We got to get the bag with the bigger cup, the little cup, and the super tiny souffle cups. There's some cups stacked together. There's some papers, there's some Q-tips, among other things inside of this bag that we need. And inside of the envelope, there is a very special blue paper. You might notice something's going on if you hold it too long. We'll get to talking about what really is going on with this piece of paper, but that's inside of the envelope. And not included that we will be needing is grab yourself a cup of water, a pair of scissors, and some measuring spoons, specifically the tablespoon and the teaspoon. Grab those. Also grab a bag of ice. You could either just get some ice and put it inside of the bag, or you can get some water, put it inside of the bag, freeze it overnight. And we also need some extra things. These are a bit more optional, but it'll be good if you could grab them and we could use them, which are, we need some sort of vinegar, and lemon juice, and also bleach. Now, don't go crazy. We don't need the whole thing. We basically need a very small amount, like maybe even a small cup like this, a souffle cup. To be honest, we need less than a teaspoon of each of those things. And also at the same time, it's a bit more optional, and we'll get to that when we get to that experiment. So once you got all those ready, then it's a good time to start talking about these acids and bases. And believe it or not, almost all liquids are either an acid or a base. And acids and bases, they neutralize each other. What does that mean? Well, if you put them together, they cancel each other out. And all around us, there's a whole bunch of acids and bases. As an example, the juice that you drink, the pool that you swim in, even the water that you drink could either be acidic, an acid, or it could be a base called alkaline, sometimes as we call it. And although we usually see scientists with their cool chemicals, strong chemicals in the lab trying to mix them together to make some chemical reactions, that's not the only place that you could find chemicals. You could also find chemicals naturally in nature, of course. As an example, fruits like lemons, oranges, and limes, they are acidic. Even with insects like the bombardier beetle and the vinegaroon, they shoot out an acid as a defense mechanism. Even inside of your own body, there's a lot of acids and bases. Like as an example, what digests our delicious pizza? There's an acid that does that inside of your stomach called hydrochloric acid. And if there's too much of this hydrochloric acid inside of your body, you'll get a stomach ache, and you know what mom and dad usually give you? Some Tums. And the Tums, you know what that's made out of? A bit of calcium. And the calcium is a type of base. That's why it cools it down. You got too much acid, you add it with a little bit of base, it neutralizes it, and it calms your stomach down a little bit more. Even your muscles! Yes, made out of protein, which is made up of an acid, amino acid. Oh yeah, my beautiful muscles here, that's made out of an acid. Even your pancreas is basic. But with all this talk about acids and bases, how can you tell the difference between an acid and a base? Are you an acid? Are you a base? How could you tell? Right? Do you just stare at it? Do you ask it? No, there's a very special way that scientists are able to do this. But generally, bases are usually slimy and slippery, and if you were to taste acids and bases, acids would be sour and bases would be bitter. But Don't just go around the house and everywhere trying to taste everything. That'll be very, very dangerous. You don't want to do that. Scientists have already come up with a very safe way to measure the alkalinity and the acidity of these liquids. And how do they do that? They use an indicator. And what does the indicator do? It just tells us if something is acidic or if it is basic. And what scientists do is they use a scale called the pH scale, which measures the strength or the weakness of the liquid. And the pH stands for property of hydrogen. And the scale would go from 0 to 14. And the acid would range from 0 to 7. And the closer it is to 0, that means it's more acidic. The stronger it is, right? And the bases would range from 7 to 14. And the closer it is to 14, the more basic it is. Okay? But sometimes you got some that will have the pH of 7, which will be exactly neutral. It's neither acidic or basic. It's nice and calm. Neutral, as we call it. So now that we've talked all about this, let's see how this works in our next experiment. Then let's test some chemicals to see whether they are acids or bases. So we need a lot of stuff for this test. We need the pair of scissors. There are stickers that say acids and base. And then there is a bigger cup, 4-ounce cup. Then there's a pH chart. There are 4 super tiny souffle cups. And then inside of that, there's a little bag of cabbage juice powder, which we definitely need. And then there are 2 measuring cups that we'll be needing. We will need a tablespoon and a teaspoon, 4 Q-tips, and then also included inside of the stack of cups were 2 clear small cups, okay? And then we need to grab a cup of water, and there are 2 stickers that are also inside of the bag, which one has a blue sticker and one has a red sticker. So once you have all these, then we are kind of in a sense going to prep a little bit, not only just for this experiment, but also for the next experiment, okay? So first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and grab your 2 clear cups and let's label them. And one's gonna be base, one's gonna be acid, so they're not cut straight in the middle. So that's why we need our scissors just to cut it right across the middle there. And use one of the stickers which says acid. Remember, just go to the corner and bend it so you can peel it off and put it on one of these clear smaller cups. Remember, there should be 2. They're like twins, they're sisters. And then with the other one, we're gonna put the base, right? So again, find a corner, bend it, peel it off, and put that on there. But at the same time, we want to pick 2 of these souffle cups and put the stickers on them as well to identify them as one being an acid, the other one being a base, okay? So let's peel off the acid there and then put it right on the outside. And after you do that, let's do the same thing with the base. Peel it off. That's good. All right, so now we want to start putting in some of the powder and the water into the clear cups first. Now you can see that they are color coordinated. You can see that the acids are going to be red, the bases will be the blue, so make sure you don't mix these together, okay? Now let's add some water. This time we're going to add 2 tablespoons of water into each of these clear cups of acid and base stickers here. Okay, so let's do 2 tablespoons, not teaspoons. And so try to get a full amount of water into that tablespoon. There's 1, and here is 2. Should go almost to the brim. Same thing with the other. 1, 2. There we go. And then as you can see, the acid has the color red. That means we're gonna use only the red sticker bag inside of that one, and then the blue into the blue base. Okay, so go ahead and grab your red sticker bag, open that up, and pour it right inside of there. Make sure it's in the red acid one. And you can use all of it. It's good. Same thing with the blue sticker. Okay, and open it up and let it come out, and that is good. Now we want to mix this together by using our Q-tips. So just go ahead and take a Q-tip and just mix it. Do both at the same time. This is kind of hard, but I believe you could do it. Yeah, we're just mixing it together like this. Mix it some more, and you can take your time with this. You can really so that the powder would really stay within the liquid and really mix and dissolve into the liquid. But again, the whole purpose of us doing this is so that we can get half ready for our experiment here, but also for the next experiment right afterwards. Now, what Mega Manoa is doing is actually pretty hard, so I would recommend not to use two hands like this. I would recommend mixing one at a time. So hold the cup and mix it like this, nice and well. That way we don't spill accidentally, and then give the other one some attention too. Here you go, I love you too. I love you too, base. There you go. So we just keep on mixing, and you go back and forth just like that. And once you start seeing the powder kind of starting to go away, then I think you're good. Okay, so next is we're going to be filling in these cups with the teaspoon. So with the teaspoon, we're gonna take a teaspoon of the acid and put it in the acid, a teaspoon of the base and put it in the base. Make sure you don't mix it in a different way, okay? So double check the label to see if it says acid. We see that it says acid, and we're gonna do a teaspoon of this into here. Now, what I like to do is I like to hold my teaspoon right over my cup that I'm gonna pour into, so I know for sure that I'm filling it completely with the teaspoon of this liquid. So I'm gonna take that, fill it up, that's good, and pour it in nice and slowly. Remember, check the label, acid to acid. And then before you mix it with the base, make sure you wipe it with some sort of towel, so that it does not mix these chemicals at all, okay? And do the same thing. Make sure you check the labels, base to base, right? And my teaspoon is nice and dry as well. Hold it right over the cup, pour it onto there, and pour it in. Donezo. Okay, so that's good. So take the other two Q-tips and leave them inside of there. And with these two, we'll come back to that in our second experiment in just a second. But let's move these to the side so that we have something to use that's an acid and a base for our next experiment. But in the meantime, let's still use these two that we have here. Okay, so leave the Q-tips inside, and we still want to use this cup of water to make our indicator. Okay, so we've got our acids and bases, but when you really look at it, you can't tell which one's the acid and which one's the base without the label. They look exactly the same. They're both clear. But with the indicator, it's able to tell us if something is an acid or a base. So let's first make our indicator, and guess what? It's actually just cabbage juice extract. Pretty cool. Yeah, who knew? Cabbage juice was able to tell us which one's an acid and which one's a base. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take some of this water, we're gonna put it into the bigger cup. This is a 4-ounce cup that was included in your bag. And also, of course, with the cabbage juice extract. And we're gonna put a certain amount of water into there, which is 4 tablespoons of this water. So let's do that. Let's do this 4 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and perfect, 4. So there's 4 tablespoons. And once we do that, then we're just gonna take our indicator and pour all of that into our cup of water. Now, to mix it, you could use the teaspoon that you have. Okay, just mix it up and cabbage juice. Don't drink it. We need it. We need it for our experiment. So the beautiful thing about this indicator is it will tell us if one of these is an acid or a base. But how is it going to tell us? Is it going to talk to us? No, it's not going to talk to us. It's actually going to start to change colors. And that's what this pH chart is that we have right here. Okay, so the pH chart will tell us by the color that it turns if it's either an acid or it's a base. Now, do you remember when Mega Manoa told you that the range of an acid is between 0 and 7? So if you look at the scale here, if it turns to the color that you see from the numbers 0 to 7, either being red or pinkish, then it's for sure an acid. However, if it goes from the number of 7 to 14 being the colors of green or even blue, right? So those are more basic. They are bases, right? So let's find out which ones these are by using our indicator and putting it inside of these that we have here. So we don't need the Q-tips anymore. Let's move them out of the way. Now, before we start this, notice, if you look at the scale here, is right in the middle, 7. Remember how we talked about that? That 7 is neutral. It's neither an acid, neither a base. But remember this color, because once I put it in, it's either going to turn a bit more red or a bit blue, right? If it turns blue, it's a base. And if it turns red, it's for sure an acid. So keep that in mind. And the way that we're going to do this is we're just going to take a teaspoon of this cabbage juice, pour it in there, and see what color it's going to change. So here we go. Let's just scoop a teaspoon of that, and let's put it in the acid one. Well, if it's an acid, it should turn a bit red or pinkish. So here we go. Ready, set. What do you know? It's a bit pinkish. Look at that. Now, if it's not as vivid, you could add an extra teaspoon of this, okay? So the more you add, whoa. Well, don't add too much because it's gonna spill for sure. But definitely you could see by the color, right, that this is an acid. You could even check on the pH chart as to how strong it is or how weak it is, right? But we also have another chemical here. It says base, but is it really? Well, let's find out, right? If it's a base, it should turn either blue or even close to even green. Crazy. So let's take this and put it in the base one. Clear as day. And if you want to be more sure, you could add another tablespoon of that indicator. For sure, that is a base because it's blue. That's also how you can remember it. The first letter is B. Bases are blue. They both start with a B. Then obviously the other one will be red, acids are red. Now, of course, these are the only ones that we provided to you, but like how we said in the beginning, you could try to use other types of chemicals that are lying around your house. Try all sorts of things, your juice, right? Even your water. So here I've prepared already ahead of time some vinegar, lemon juice, and bleach that is diluted with water that we have here. So let's see what type of chemical these are. Are they acids? Are they bases? I don't know. Let's take a bit of the indicator and see what happens. So, clear already. We could see that that is an acid because it's a bit red. What about this one? It's clear, right? Right away, the indicator, that's how amazing it is. The indicator already changes the color to make it show that it's an acid or it's a base, right? So even with this one, we're getting closer to a opaque yellow. Crazy. You could keep on trying putting more indicator inside just to see what happens with them, but looks like this guy's not really changing that much. Another really cool thing that you could do is you can do it in reverse. You could take these acids and bases and put it inside of the indicator just to see what would happen, okay? Because remember, it's an indicator, so it will change colors by what chemical is going into it or it's mixing with. So let's take the acid, just take a little bit of this and let's see if it's gonna stay the color purple or not. So let's put it inside. Ooh, starting to change a little bit more pinkish, but what if we put the other one inside? The base. Let's see what happens. Now it's purple. And let's just keep adding a little bit more. If you keep on adding a little bit more, then it's gonna be blue. Yep. And so you could do this back and forth, but again, what we're really doing is we're just changing the indicator. So you could do it backwards like this. But again, you don't have to stop at these few chemicals that we have here. Go around the house, find a liquid. If you want to know what it is, instead of tasting it, use the indicator, which we did with this experiment. And there you go. So now that we played around with the cabbage juice, of course that was a really awesome indicator, but it's not the only indicator out there. You could even use other things like grape juice, onions, certain flower petals, even a spice, turmeric. You could use all of those to be as an indicator to help you find out if something's acidic or if it's basic. But now this time, what we're gonna do in our next experiment is we're gonna use a very special paper that will change color once it comes in contact with a base. This is a pretty cool experiment. This is all you need. We need this piece of paper, which is very special. It's a base indicator paper. And then we need the 2 cups that we just prepped from the previous experiment that had the labels of acid and base with the actual acid and base chemicals inside of them. And so since this is a base indicator, we're gonna use the base first. Okay, so make sure that you check to see that and then draw something, write something, whatever you want, okay? So let's see if you can tell what I'm writing here, because what's cool about this paper is it's gonna change colors once it comes in contact with this base. Hi. Pretty cool, right? So it's changed colors because it came in contact with our base. But an even cooler thing is I'm gonna turn this into a secret message that no one will ever see again. So just take the acid, and remember what they do with the bases and the acids is they neutralize each other. They cancel each other out once they come into contact with each other. So just take it and write over what you have just made. And look what's happening. It's disappearing. And see how I keep on dipping back inside of here so we can get a good amount of acid to cover it up as best as possible. So you could already start seeing here that it's kind of starting to erase what I just drew on there, because remember, the acids and the bases, they neutralize each other. But it does take a little bit of time. You gotta be a little bit patient, but you could start seeing a little bit of the I that I had written over here is starting to disappear. So give it a little bit of time. And once you finish seeing it disappear, then you could try it again, use the base again, draw something else. But again, the whole point is acids and bases, they neutralize each other. And we're able to use this really awesome piece of paper to see how they neutralize each other. Everybody knows what this is. It's a thermometer. It helps us to tell the temperature of whatever it is, right? We use it to measure the temperature of the weather, even the pool, even your food. We're able to tell if it's hot enough, right? We use this all the time. And so you could say that it's a type of indicator that will tell us about the temperature of whatever it is that we're measuring. But it's not the only thing that we can use to measure whether something is hot or cold. Take, for instance, this piece of paper that you got from your envelope. This guy would actually change color when it becomes hot, and also change to a different color once it becomes cold. So let's play around with this in our next experiment. In our previous experiment, we used an indicator to tell if something was an acid or a base. But in this situation, in this experiment, we're going to use this indicator to tell if something is either hot or cold. So usually we have a thermometer to tell the temperature, but this could also tell you if something's hot or something's cold. As an example, take your hand. Your hand's usually pretty hot. And if you put it on here, keep it on there maybe for like 3 seconds or so. And if you take it off, whoa, I got my handprint. Now, if you don't see a handprint, either the place that you're at is pretty hot, you gotta go to a colder place, or you just gotta heat up your hands a little bit by, causing a bit of friction. Or even you could blow on it. Blow some warm air, and then if you put it on top again, look at that! So, as you can see, it changes colors because my hand is hot, but you could do it in reverse with something that's cold. Just be sure your bag of ice is kind of dry, And just put it on top and whoa, it's like erasing everything I ever put on there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so it changes colors by something that's cold or something that is hot. And you can do this over and over again. You could try other things that are cold, other things that are hot, whatever it is. But again, if your hands aren't warm enough, it's just a simple thing of, rubbing it together. Or if you really want to take it a step farther, just take a hair dryer and make it nice and warm. Put it on there and it should work. But simply just by having your hands, rubbing together, it should be good enough to do this. But again, this is a lot like a thermometer. It indicates to us whether it's touched something that is hot by changing colors, or if it's touched something cold by changing colors, just like a thermometer. There you go, guys. A lot of fun stuff that we were able to learn about these acids and bases. I hope you had a lot of fun, and until next time, I will see you at home.